Okay, now I'm going to move on to introducing Yhonnie Scarce. So Yhonnie was born in Woomera, South Australia, and belongs to the Kokatha. Sorry, I'm definitely not pronouncing that right. Apologies. And Nukunu peoples. So Yhonnie's interdisciplinary practice explores the political nature and aesthetic qualities of glass and photography, and her work often references the ongoing effects of colonisation on Aboriginal people. In particular, her research has explored the impact of the removal and relocation of Aboriginal people from their homelands and the forcible removal of Aboriginal children from their families. So family history is central to Scarce's work. Drawing on the strength of her ancestors, she offers herself as a conduit, sharing their significant stories from the past. I won't run through all of her awards and shows here, but the list is really long and impressive. But she's won a number of awards recently, and some of her recent international exhibitions include in Paris, in Italy, and in Canada. So I'm really looking forward to hearing about your work. Over to you, Yhonnie.
Thanks, Lucy. I've set myself a timer as well because last time I spoke overtime, so I'll share my screen. So as Lucy mentioned, I was born in Woomera in South Australia, and for those people who haven't been to South Australia, Woomera is 5 hours north of Adelaide by car, and was created in 1947 to be arranged to test long-range weapons, actually. So I tend to travel back to Woomera quite a lot for research. Was back there earlier this year when this photo was taken, actually in January, for a research trip the research trip for a survey show at the Australian Centre for Contemporary Art. So, while I was there, it was actually interesting because it was the first time I'd actually taken notice of the one of the many signs I think that you come across when you enter the prohibited zone, which was pointed out quite proudly by one of the signs that it's the largest, I guess, testing range in the world, and is the size of the United Kingdom. And they still test some sort of weaponry out there, but most recently I think it's drones, and they have been for a while, I think. So, and but as many of you might know, is that the Woomera prohibited area is the area for nuclear testing of the British, from the British and Australian governments in the 1950s. So, and excuse my blurry images. I was saying to a few people earlier tonight that I think I took these photos without my glasses on, so they're a little bit fuzzy. I just wanted to give a context of the area itself, or the township, which still operates as a military town. And this is probably one of the most favourite buildings that I visit when I'm in Woomera. It's the most famous sort of Woomera theatre that has a movie once a month for the residents that come and go from the township. I have previously made a number of works related to the Woomera babies, and this cemetery, I think, is probably one of the saddest cemeteries I've ever visited, and I've visited quite a lot in my lifetime as an artist. So I call these little ones my old friends. So this cemetery is full of children. Probably majority of the graves are children in this cemetery. So they unfortunately, I think don't. I think I would say that they were the victims of one of the many nuclear tests in South Australia. So I tend to spend quite a lot of time in the cemetery when I visit Woomera, and I think particularly because it was my birthplace. And this is one of the little ceramic flower pots that you come across. So majority of what you see there is either boy or girls, pink teddies or blue teddies. Some have just ABC lettering as well for stillborn babies. I don't know what's going on here. So I have an interest in, I guess, the idea of the open air museum and what I would call trophy parks, and I think this is one of the many trophies, as I would call, in the missile park in Woomera. So it's what I nicknamed the lipstick rocket. One of the many bombs that would have been tested in the area. When I visited in January, they had a paint job, so they were looking pretty flash at this time. And I don't know what that is, but it's something, quite a big jet bomb rocket thing. And this is just a detailed shot of a work of mine that was in response to the Woomera babies. And I trained as a glassblower at the South Australian School of Art and graduated in 2004. And like Lucy said earlier, I work with a lot of other materials like photography and metal, found objects, other apparatuses as well. So this work in particular is one of 5 bush plums that I created regarding the story about deformed children that were born in the prohibited zone. And I named this Only a Mother Could Love Them. So when I made this work, it was quite distressing because this particular bush plum in the middle here, I called the screamer, because it was, when it was being made in the heat, the mouth of the plum looked like it was crying. So, but this work for me was really important because it was about the children who were being born in the area, but also being born in the wider area of South Australia. So this is for the Aboriginal children, and then the images in the background are for the non-Aboriginal children. So I worked with black luster glass, which actually has a metallic feel to the look, and it was within my research that I discovered that strontium 90 actually has that sort of colouring if you look at it under a microscope. So these bush plums are burnt, they're beaten up, they have holes in them, and they are a little bit sad, but still very beautiful. So this is a close-up, a sort of detailed image of a larger work called Hollowing Earth, and it was in response to the uranium mine, which is half an hour to 40 minutes north of Woomera on my country, on Kokatha country. So this is one of 50 bush bananas that I created out of uranium glass. And the uranium glass actually is quite low in terms of toxicity. So it was quite an interesting way to work with that type of glass. They do glow in the dark if you do blacklight them. But I wanted to work with something that referenced the importance of leaving uranium inside the ground. And I call this color uranium the snot green, and that it does cause a lot of sickness, and it causes a lot of sickness, not not just within close proximity, but it's kind of like it's something that, you could end up being like, causing cancer, could be something that's in your chest or something that, excretes from your body. But at the same time, this work was very much about desecration of country and what is left behind if we, allow people to keep digging for this toxic material. So I burnt the glass. I created a whole lot of hot formed holes in it. The wider installation of the work is at the moment touring the country, and it's on, I think, 5 tables that is installed like a crater, I guess. So each bush banana is different. Each bush banana is burnt differently as well. And I quite like these images because they give that idea of what this type of mining does to country. So it's sort of one of the larger bush bananas on its side. This is called Thunder Raining Poison, and it was one of my first nuclear clouds I ever created. I'd been doing quite a lot of research related to my history, I guess, family history of nuclear colonisation in South Australia, and I was asked to create a work for the inaugural Tainandi Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Festival in Adelaide, and I knew that I wanted to make something related to the nuclear test at Maralinga and Emu Field. And so I worked with an architect friend of mine, Mikhail, to map 2,000 yams in the formation of a fallout cloud. And so part of that project as well was that we drove up to Maralinga and spent a couple of days up there, so that the associates at the jam factory who I was working with got to know the story and got to visit the site of one of those many tests. We didn't get to go to Emu Field, but I think for me it was really important to share that story. So this work was, I guess the beginning, I think, more so of creating really large scale works for me. And it was interesting when this work was exhibited in Adelaide, not a lot of people knew about the nuclear test in South Australia. So I think I felt like it educated a lot of people at that time, and not just in Adelaide, but it now sits at in the collection at the National Gallery of Australia in Canberra. And when it was exhibited for the National Indigenous Triennial in 2017, more people learnt about these tests. And I feel like it was sitting in the right place at the right time. This is another work that came about after Thunder Raining Poison, called Death Zephyr. I call this one a death cloud. Even though the other clouds are death clouds, it's something that I felt like was more monstrous, I think. And this was coming from many pictures that I saw of some clouds that were crawling along quite low to the landscape. So it took people by surprise. So this work has 2,000 pieces again in it, and it has a mouth and it has wings. That's the way I see it anyway. So it's something that I imagine would engulf people if it come up and snuck up behind you. So this was interesting. It's the largest cloud I've ever made, even though it still has 2,000 pieces in it. But I used black, clear, and a purpley grey colour in this work as well, just to sort of have more of a shadow-like appearance for the cloud. And people were actually invited to go to sit underneath this cloud or engage with it underneath it as well. So it sits quite high on my left, on my right actually, and is quite low underneath. So what I was seeing was people actually lying beneath it, which was really interesting and very beautiful at the same time. So this is the most recent cloud, called Cloud Chamber, and it's was exhibited at Tarrawarra Museum of Art in 2020. What's the year this year? Anyway, last year. So, this one has 1,000 pieces, but it's actually from an image that I found of the breakaway bomb at Maralinga, and Mikhail and I looked at dark pieces in the cloud formation. So this one is another monster, as I would call it. It's a lot thinner, but also it's something that again it's creeping along the ground, but it's something that has head and shoulders, and they are all a greeny, slimy like color. It's called eel green. And it's coming from the stories of hearing about some of the substances that were hitting people's skin. And it was like tar-like, slimy substance. So this one is the only cloud actually that has a colour that covers the entire cloud. The others have a mixture of clear or a greeny colour as well. So this one is quite, people say it's quite silent when they see it, which is interesting, because I guess, yeah, they do have their sneaky behaviour after the bomb has gone off. So this, for people who want to know as well, it took 2 weeks to install each bomb cloud. Even this one, the 1,000 pieces, because of its intricacy, I think, and different levels of height, I think, of the yams that I've used. So this is a side-on. So each cloud itself actually too changes shape as you move around each part of it as well. And that's what I like about them too, because it shows that sense of trickery. So it's kind of like you think that it's quite small or wide, but it's not. So but I haven't included all of the images of this work because it's there's so many, because each centimetre changes it as well. So this was taken by my phone, and you don't actually see the shadows on each of the yams on this floor, but there's shadows for each bomb cloud as well, which I feel like is really important to reference the Aboriginal people that died as a result of these tests as well, and that remain unaccounted for. Just keeping an eye on the time, but this is a most recent work that came about from the research trip that I did back home to country and to Woomera, and it's called Missile Park. It's currently on display in Brisbane at the Institute of Modern Art, and it was on display in Melbourne for a few months earlier this year. What you don't see in these sheds is actually there's 20 bush plums in each shed. They are depicting the architectural buildings that were temporary houses for the military in South Australia during these tests. So again, I worked with Mikhail, who I love very much. He's very beautiful to work with. So we wanted to create three structures that were something that would depict something, a structure that was quick to build but quick to demolish. So and each shed has been covered in bitumen and shellac, and you can enter one of them. You can't enter the other two. But for me, it's a memorial for Aboriginal people, because I feel like the bush plums inside those sheds are time bombs waiting to go off. I'm always a big believer that these type of histories or these secrets are just waiting to be uncovered. So each shed themselves are true to size, I guess, but they're not as big as what you would see out at Maralinga or Woomera. But it's something that you can get up close to and actually can interact with intimately. They are quite dark. It's probably the darkest work I've ever made in terms of the history of the nuclear tests in South Australia. But for me, it's one of many, I think, works that I'll continue to make. Like, I feel like this is not the end for this one. So this is one of the other views from Akka in Melbourne. So the first shed that you can see with the door closed is the one that you can enter. And you are invited to spend time inside that place and wait for your eyes to adjust, and then the bush plums appear to you. So, so I think I'm worried that my alarm is going to go off, but I think I'm pretty, am I on time, or that's all? I think that's it for me. Yeah.